what do AI and automation mean for real estate? I could tell you that there will be winners and there will definitely be losers. And the winners aren't going to win by accident. The winners are going to take an eyes wide open approach to the new world that we're living in. And they have to be proactive. My goal for today is two things. I want to inform and inspire you enough to leave this room and take action. And I've taken on the impossible task of trying to leave every single one of you with a customized plan based on your business, your competencies, your portfolio, so that you can succeed into the future. We have a lot to cover, so let's start by going back 168 years. Imagine if you could go back to 1857. This is New York City. The highest residential buildings were 6 stories high. Shorelines were bustling with industry. And the skylines of today and the lack of those industries was completely unimaginable. Elijah Otis invented the safety elevator in 1857 and installed it into a New York City department store. It took just 10 years for the first 20-story building to be constructed. Within 25 years, 252 buildings of 10 stories or higher were constructed. And within 50 years, the Woolworth building reached a height of 792 feet tall. Along with it, it increased underlying real estate asset values by 300%. It also changed some of the fundamentals of real estate. It inverted the value equation. Now, the higher the floor, the more valuable it was, which is the inverse of what it was prior. And retail rents, because of the density that was above them, increased to be 6 times that of the offices in those buildings. And so this is an example of a tech innovation that fundamentally changed real estate. Now, imagine if you could go back. How obvious would it be to go and buy up Park Avenue real estate? If you could have just thought in that moment that this little thing will continue to grow, you would have been able to see how obvious that was. Now, for another tech innovation that changed the world and real estate. Imagine if you could go back to the year 1900, just before the invention of the automobile. This is Fifth Avenue, and if you look very closely, you could see that there is just one automobile. At the time, cars were just a novelty item. 1913, just 5 years after Henry Ford invented the assembly line, this is a picture taken at that exact same intersection. And if you look, you can see just one horse. So in both cases, it took about 10 or 15 years for this new technology to be fully metabolized by the economy. So now, imagine if you could go back to this moment in time. The world of interstates and highways would have been as unimaginable as any sci-fi future that we have a vision of today of how AI and automation might manifest itself. The world that we live in was sci-fi to the people that came before us, and as will be the world that we live in the future. And imagine if you can go back to this time. Shortly after, entrepreneurs like Ray Kroc from McDonald's, Sam Walton, they flew in airplanes and they bought up the intersection of every major interstate with all the towns. Imagine how obvious it would be to be a great real estate entrepreneur if you could have had the foresight to realize the extrapolation of this technology and how it would be adopted. The combination of these two technologies either created or fully transformed every single asset class that you own in this room today. So as we think about the automated future, we think about self-driving vehicles. He who giveth can take it away. So we have to think about how is our infrastructure, how our asset class is going to change into the future. So now let's fast forward into the future. Imagine if in 2035, you could go back to now. If you could tell yourself just one thing, what would it be? I think it would be that everything that can be automated will be automated. And I think, like the tech trends before it, it's probably a 10 to 15 year cycle before this is fully adopted, especially for physical automation and robotics. But for cognitive automation and AI, it will certainly be much faster. But don't take it from me. Take it from the largest employer in the United States, who over the summer said, it is very clear that AI is going to change literally every job. Maybe there's a job in the world that AI won't change, but I haven't thought of it. Largest employer in the United States. So, what is automation? Automation is simply tech performing tasks without human effort or intervention, transferring work from people to machines. Now, AI is stealing all the headlines, but I want to reframe this for everybody in this room. Automation is two things. It's physical automation through robots and automated mobility and transport, and cognitive automation. So the automation of blue-collar jobs and white-collar jobs. This is a breakdown. So with physical automation, and we'll get into the details in a second, you have humanoid general-purpose robots, you have specialized single-purpose robots, self-driving cars, ground delivery bots, and drones. Humanoid robots, they embody the form factor of a human so that they can perform tasks in the world that has been built for us. They will work in general living spaces and workplaces, and they'll replace generally unskilled labor, doing ordinary tasks, versus specialized robots are going to be built for a very specific task and will likely be inside of a workplace, a specialized workplace environment. And specialized robots will replace more skilled labor. They are limited in focus, but deeply specialized and efficient at what they do. So let's take a look at some of these. So this is the Tesla Optimus. Elon Musk recently said that he believes that 80% of Tesla's shareholder value will be attributed to the Optimus robot and not electric vehicles. Right now, in 2025, they're using this for internal use only. In 2026, they will sell thousands. 2027, tens of thousands. 2028, hundreds of thousands. And by 2029, 2030, they expect to be selling 1 million of these a year. The target price point, $20,000 to $30,000. A robot that can work 24/7, 365 inside of your homes and workplaces. Like a car or an iPhone, which were unimaginable to previous people to be owning, you will all likely own one or more of these. Then you have specialized robots. This is an example of a bricklaying robot. It's the Hadrian X. They're very good at doing routine high-frequency tasks. This one here can lay 300 bricks per hour, which is what an expert mason can do in a day. However, there's a difference. The blocks are 12 times larger than a normal cinder block of brick. And they're also lighter. The machine can also do this with absolute precision every single time. It wastes zero material, saving costs in carbon. And you'll see these, this is an example of a bricklaying robot, but you'll see these doing any kind of routine tasks, pouring concrete, paving, plastering, painting, window cleaning, roofing, earth moving, material transport, etc. This last one is a fun example. This is a fruit picking drone. And not only does it pick the fruit, but it also has sensors that will observe the sugar content. It'll see if the fruit is it has bugs or worms or disease or anything like that. It can also do pruning and spraying, so dangerous jobs. And all along the way, it's doing data aggregation and feedback so that the people who are planting these crops know exactly what their yield is, what the disease rate is, etc. And one last example, because I think this is a look into our future. In China, they have what they call dark factories. Do you know why they're dark factories? Because they're so automated that they don't even bother to turn the lights on. They have raw material on one side of the factory and they have cars that come out the other side, which is why they can produce the equivalent of a Tesla for about $15,000. Mobility and transport. This is happening now and fast. Waymo is in San Francisco, LA, Phoenix, Atlanta, and Miami. And they have pilot programs right now in New York and London. Now, for a second, think about this. There will probably be a moment in the next 12 months when Tesla pushes an update that turns 7.3 million vehicles into self-driving robotaxis. So there will be a day when we wake up and there will be 7.3 million more robotaxis on the road than there were yesterday. Think about that. Ground delivery bots are being used. Pretty much every Amazon package that you've ever received to your house involved some kind of ground delivery bot in their factories. Ports in China are using ground delivery bots to move people around, and there's an endless number of other applications. And then lastly, drones. Vladimir Putin thought he was going to march into Kiev in 3 days. What was the deciding factor? Drone warfare. Nobody saw that coming. Now our entire military-industrial complex has pivoted to investing in drone technology. What do we know about tech adoption? Many times, the US government is doing research and investment in these areas, and then where does it trickle down into? Into all of our lives. And so the day is not too far off when there's a drone that takes off from a micro-logistics port in your neighborhood, navigates miles of power lines and trees and other obstacles, and drops a package off at your front door. So what are the potential employment implications of physical automation? Physical automation has direct exposure to 20% of the US workforce population. This is just physical automation, not AI. 13 million factory workers, 8 million construction workers, 3 million truck drivers, 2 million farm workers, and 1 million Uber and taxi drivers. Now, I am not arguing that 100% of these jobs go away, but we also can't argue that 0% of the jobs will go away. It will be somewhere on the spectrum. What that number is, I don't purport to know, but it's something that we should all think about. The implications of automated mobility will very much affect the future of real estate. And this is why we're talking about AI and automation at a real estate conference. As real estate operators, you will need to embrace technology to be competitive into the future. But you will also have to think about your portfolio and your portfolio strategy to understand the ways that automation may affect the underlying utility and value of your assets. So some of these categories may have the utility of a payphone or a bookstore or a taxi medallion in 2009 when the iPhone came out. They didn't all just go away immediately, but over the course of 10 to 15 years, all of those things either went away or were fully transformed. And so we will experience this with real estate assets. So just think about this. If a self-driving car can drive me through the night and I have a long trip to do, what time am I going to leave my house? Now I leave in the morning and maybe I'll stay at a motel, but in the future, you're going to call a sleeper car at 10 p.m. and you'll wake up at your destination, right? And so going back to our reference with the automobile created many of the asset classes that we have today. Self-driving cars are going to change the utility of others. Now, there's going to be losses. There's also going to be a whole entirely new asset classes that get created. And there'll be opportunities to transform some of these dead real estate assets. So now, let's move to the other side of automation, which is cognitive automation. Cognitive automation is the automation of white-collar jobs. What the Industrial Revolution was to labor, the cognitive revolution will be to talent. So think about a commercial farming operation in the moment of the Industrial Revolution that decided that they didn't want to adopt tractors. There may have been a small moment in time where they could be competitive, but that strategy is not sustainable. This is from the CEO of Ford Motor Companies. Artificial intelligence is going to replace literally half of all white-collar workers in the US and leave a lot of them behind. Now, again, this feels a little bit aggressive. When ATM machines came out, I figured there'd be no bank tellers, but I don't know, banks are generously inefficient. So maybe this won't happen, but maybe it will. It's something to think about. And it's a pretty strong statement from the CEO of a company like Ford. The employment implications of cognitive AI are another 20% of the US workforce. Now, everybody will be affected, but these are the people that are most directly affected. 20 million jobs that are classified as administrative, 3 million call center workers, 3 million back office workers. Now, the way this affects real estate is going to be nuanced, right? If you have a client-facing office on Park Avenue at a wealth management firm, I don't think that's going away. But if you own a call center in Ohio, it might be different. So if there are fewer workers, will we need less office space? If there are fewer jobs, who's paying the rent in your apartment buildings? And if the value of an education is hard to justify because there aren't entry-level jobs, will fewer students go to college? The cost of college is going up. The quality of the alternatives are going up even faster. So a student today can get a fully personalized AI education from the best professors in the world for a cost of almost nothing. And you're seeing this in surveys from 10 years ago, where 70% of people said that a university education was very important. Now that number is down to 36%. Enrollment in universities is down by 13%. Now, again, this will be nuanced, right? I expect that there will always be students that want to go to Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. But if it's some mid-tier state school, is that going to be worth the price of enrollment? Maybe not. And then there's the Jevons paradox. This observed that there was a fear at the time that steam engines were getting much more efficient. There was a fear that people would use less coal. And of course, exactly the opposite happened. So there is a phenomenon that when technology makes resources more efficient or cheaper to use, that total consumption of that resource often goes up because people are more keen to adopt it and find new uses for it. So maybe this whole thing goes in the other direction. We saw Jevons paradox play through with computer chips and electricity and automobiles, but there's something about this AI and automation to me that feels different. So let's look at where are we on the technology adoption curve. And I want to be clear that I'm using cars as an example, but I want to just make sure that everybody knows the terminology that we use when we talk about AI adoption. So what we've always had in the past are human-controlled or analog. And then you have human in the loop. Human in the loop is when the human is still the dominant operator, but that there is technology on board. So this would be like the cars that came out 10 years ago or so, where you had lane keeping assist or parking, but the driver was still the driver of the car. Then you have human on the loop, which is more like the Tesla self-driving features, where the car can do 80 to 90% of the driving, but it still requires a human operator to deal with edge cases. And then you have human out of the loop, which is just full and complete automation. One thing I want to point out, and this is true with like the bricks with the Hadrian X, is that right now we have a form factor that is the legacy form factor that has been augmented with the new technology. Keep in mind that once this becomes fully adopted, we will start to have purpose-built vehicles and purpose-built everything that where the form factor is AI native, which will be particularly transformative. Now, using the example of self-driving cars, realize that driving a vehicle is the most complicated, most dangerous, most consequential activity that any person does on any given day. So if you can automate driving, you can automate everything. Jamie Dimon said that we are completely convinced that the consequences of AI will be extraordinary. So here's my question to you guys. How are they going to change underwriting guidance for your assets? If Jamie Dimon has this level of conviction, when he's speaking with his executives and that gets passed down, at what moment in time are they going to change the underwriting? Because the moment that the lenders change their underwriting of these assets, because remember, these might be 10, 20, 30-year notes. The moment that they change the underwriting, the asset values will change. And this is something to look out for. What I want everybody in this room to fully appreciate is that, yes, it will probably be 10 to 15 years until this is fully adopted. But what your responsibility is that the window of time that you have is not between now and when this technology is fully adopted. It's between now and when everybody else figures out that it's going to happen. And when do we think that is? I think the window for that is 12 to 36 months. So the time to start planning for all this stuff is right now. The second thing is AI will reshape the competitive field. So if there is a real estate operator who can underwrite, build, and operate an asset 10 to 20% more efficiently than a competitor that doesn't, they win the deal 100% of the time. There's no second place in a real estate deal. Real estate deals are won and lost on the margin. This is the imperative of leaning into AI and automation. So, what you guys need to do now, it's two things. One is an audit of your portfolio composition. Measure automation exposure against tenant jobs and employers. Now when you go to the bank, they might ask you, well, what's the average income of your tenant? I'm pretty sure that in the near future, they're going to ask you what job titles and roles do they have? Because they're going to want to underwrite the risk of those jobs being automated. Identify assets tied to vulnerable sectors and also to growth sectors. Divest and invest to mitigate risk and capture upside, and stress test your rent rolls. On the other side of the equation is integrating robotics and AI. Now, robotics are definitely in a nascent moment and are going to be slower to move. So this is, I would say, as it relates to robotics, it's one of those things where you need to just keep your eye on where this is going. I don't think you want to necessarily go out and invest in this infrastructure today, but it's something to be aware of. And two is, for your cognitive automation around AI, this is the time to make a plan, identify and test solutions, implement and train your team, and then refine it. So that brings us to leading with AI. I want to arm every single one of you guys with enough confidence and understanding of what this technology is and where you need to focus and where you don't. So let's dive in. Imagine for a second any open role inside of your organization and think about somebody that has this resume. They've trained on and read 200 million books, papers, and documents. They perform in the top 1% of reasoning and problem-solving benchmarks. They have an MBA, a JD, a CPA. They have a computer science degree, and they're an expert coder. They're fluent across every major language in the world. They have executive-grade writing skills, and as a hobby, they're a 10-time world chess champion. This is what AI is today. Today. And this is not for an executive role. This can be for a customer service role, for a back office role, for anything. This is what the resume actually looks like today. Elon Musk said, "My guess is that we have AI smarter than any single human at anything as soon as next year. And by 2030, that AI will probably be smarter than the sum of all human intelligence." All of this can be overwhelming. And if you were a technology executive, you wouldn't be in this room. I want everybody here to appreciate that you are much more capable of managing this technology than you think. The mistake is that you're thinking about it as technology. I want you to shift that and think about this as an extension of your talent and your talent strategy. So in the future, intelligence or talent is going to be the sum of your analog intelligence and your AI intelligence. And human resources will go from being human resources to being hybrid resources. This is what your org chart will look like in the future. You will have AI agents working side by side with all of your team members. And the mistake that a lot of executives make is their first thought is, now I could fire a whole bunch of people and reduce my headcount. There will probably be efficiencies, I'm not going to lie. But the way to really think about it is that I want to provide leverage and supercharge every single one of my team members. Up until this point in time, executives have assistants and people to delegate things to. In the future, every single person in your company will have assistants and people to delegate things to. And so instead of thinking about doing the same with more, think about how do you do more with more? Let this be a growth opportunity. Mark Benioff said this: "This is the last moment in history where leaders manage people. From this point forward, we are all managing humans and robots." So our job as leaders is to figure this out. AI can be overwhelming from a technical standpoint. So I want to take a moment to really simplify down what is AI? How does it work? I'll be very specific to point out all of the stuff that you don't need to know and the stuff that I want you to focus on. The AI stack can be broken into 4 different parts. You have the compute, models, framing and tooling, and then the application layer. The compute layer, this is the hardware. These are the NVIDIA chips, Amazon Web Services. Other than wishing that you bought their stock 3 years ago, you don't need to worry about this. The model layer, OpenAI, Anthropic, Google Gemini, these are the models that make these chips produce the magic that they do. On any given day, who's in first place in terms of who the best model is changes. So as an executive, you could ignore this. The framing and tooling layer, this is the layer that allows developers to be able to make use of these tools and do prompt engineering and turn them into usable solutions. These are your vendors' vendors. You don't need to worry about this either. Worrying about these 3 things would be like being in the construction industry and investing way too much time and thinking about where concrete comes from and the details of the steel and timber industries. These are really important raw input materials into the success equation, but you have no control over them and they don't matter. Where you need to focus your attention is on the application layer. This is the part that are usable products, tools, and services that you and your team will interact with directly. This is the new enterprise software. To use a familiar analogy to recap the tech stack, think about it like the iPhone. With the iPhone, you have the hardware layer, which is the actual device. You have the model layer, which would be the iOS. Then you have the developer store, which allows people to make apps. But then all of the value and utility of your experience with the iPhone comes from the apps that are on it. So this is the same thing in the AI ecosystem. Focus on the application layer. Now, what the iPhone and the App Store did to supercharge your personal lives and increase your productivity and drive conveniences, the application layer of AI will do for your businesses. However, there's a massive difference, which is that the apps that were on the phone were reactive. You had to initiate the action and carry them through. And also, they were disconnected from one another. Every single one of them, for the most part, is a siloed. Agentic AI is agentic, meaning it can complete a task from beginning to end with or without your intervention. If you want to be looped in, you can be looped in, but in other cases, it could just be totally automated. And also they integrate into data sources and across systems. So there are two different types of apps that we could think about. So just like on the iPhone, the apps that you have at the bottom of your screen, email, calendar, phone, text message, those are horizontal apps. Those are general purpose apps that you can use for everything. The vertical applications are more specific. They're things that are dedicated and focused around very specific tasks. And in a business application, these are deeply informed by your workflows. You could think about the way that they work as we're all familiar with ChatGPT and prompting, I hope. Think about these as being an ecosystem of prompts that are overlaid on top of a decision tree that's informed by your company's workflows. So think about that as like as an ecosystem. We are in the process right now of our economy is metabolizing a new technology. Every single company that's doing this in terms of native AI capabilities is not more than 2 years old. But there's a growing ecosystem of apps. This market map will be also on the QR code that I'll share at the end of the presentation for all of you guys to look at. We also have a more detailed database that is tied to that. You could find it also on stackpoint.com/AI, along with a bunch of other things. So we can't talk about apps without talking about ChatGPT, the mother of them all. But the biggest mistake that I see with executives is that AI is way bigger than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is essentially a chatbot, and AI is way bigger than that. So if you look at this, chatbot is one input, stateless, manual, reactive. It could do something like summarize a lease. And then agentic AI is actually a teammate that can execute a workflow from end to end. If we break down AI, there are 4 key capabilities: retrieve and understand, predict, generate, and act. This is how it works. So retrieve and understand, this is the AI's ability to scan text and extracts insights. In a real estate application, this would be reading leases, contracts, market comps, internal memos. Predict, this is the ability to forecast future outcomes. This could be, in a real estate application, tenant churn, pricing shifts, leasing velocity, loan default risk. Generate is the ability to create content. This could be images, videos, renderings, code, etc. And then act is the ability for the AI to actually take action and initiate change. This could be updating records, sending emails, automating follow-ups, etc. Let's look at what this is in practice to some specific real estate use case examples. So a smart underwriting agent might retrieve rent rolls and market comps, predict failure risk, generate a first-pass investment memo, and act by assigning follow-ups to junior analysts. So the best applications are leveraging all 4 of these capabilities. A tenant experience agent might retrieve lease details and payment history, predict renewal likelihood, generate a personalized renewal offer, and act by sending an email follow-up. Or a deal screening agent might retrieve sponsor history and deal terms, predict alignment with your investment criteria, generate an investment committee memo, and then act by routing it internally for deeper diligence. This is one of our portfolio companies, Surface AI. It's an AI for property management. This is its delinquency agent feature. It also does due diligence for properties, lease audits, etc. But you can see it going through the process. It's communicating here with a tenant, and then it escalates it to an internal employee to approve a late fee waiver. And this is how the agents are supercharging the property managers. So, what is your role in all of this? If you want to be a tech CEO, you wouldn't be here. But this is an inevitable part of our future. Where there is change, there's opportunity. But this is a moment for leadership. This is an uncertain time. It's moving fast. You might feel like you don't know what you're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. Your IT guy, your tech team, nobody knows what they're doing. I have unbelievable engineers that work for me. They were all experts yesterday. Every single day there's new technology coming. So don't give yourself the excuse of, I'm too far behind. Nobody knows what they're doing. It takes leadership. This is a moment of uncertainty and growth, and where there's risk and there's opportunity. So how? I'll break down the who, what, where, how, and when framework in terms of next steps. One is, who is leading this? You are leading this. Do not delegate this to the IT guy. This is going to be hard for your organization. This is going to require courage and a lot of strength from you as an executive to get your teams to mobilize around this. Make this a priority. 2 is identify the right team members, right? Tech adoption across people usually falls within this curve. Look for people inside of your organization that are naturally adopting tech, right? The innovators and the early adopters. In many cases, these are younger people, because this is a situation where experience can actually work against people because they have more to unlearn. And then once you can learn with that population, identify solutions, integrate them, test them, then you can expand it to the other half of the curve. In terms of how you integrate this, again, the biggest mistake is thinking about this as technology. This is not you swipe a credit card and then it works. Think about this as being on the scale of, if you were to merge, acquire, or expand into a new market, what would you do? You would take the time to properly integrate them into your company, into your culture, into your workflows. This has to be the same thing. If you just write a check and walk away, it is a waste of money, a waste of time, and will guaranteed be a failure. And just like leading people, it works when the CEO knows what it wants it to do. This thing could drive 1,000 miles an hour, but if you don't know where it's going, that's more of a risk than it is an opportunity. You have to know what you want. You have to train it. You have to manage it and integrate it into your company. And then you have to measure it, give it results and feedback, and refine it. So stop thinking about it like technology and start thinking about it like it's a merger, acquisition. You're developing a new competency for your company. Where to look for high friction, high volume, high impact, often error-prone parts of your process. This could be drafting lease descriptions, abstracting leases, responding to tenant inquiries, and other things of that nature. There's a right way and wrong way to do it. We just covered this, but if it's a project mindset where you say there's a start and there's an end date and there's a fixed budget and it's owned by IT, it's not going to go well. This is a new competency for your business where you're going to be investing in the long term. It's going to be an evolving roadmap. There's not going to be an end date to this. I would also recommend that in terms of everybody here, you have the gray stars of the world. They're spending tens of millions of dollars with Palantir to build internal products. I would recommend that you buy and not build. If some tech nerd came up to you and said they're about to go build a hotel or an apartment building, what would you think about that? When a real estate guy goes and says, I'm going to build this stuff myself, that's the way they think about us. So just be a customer of these products. And lastly when is now. This is the window. This whole thing might take 10 to 15 years, but your window of time to move your chips and to get ahead is right now. It's in the 12 to 36 months before everybody else figures it out. And if you do that, you'll be ahead of the curve. I want you to be on the winning side of this equation. So I promised that I would leave you guys with clear and actionable and deeply personalized next steps. And I have 2 minutes and 50 seconds left. So everybody's thinking, how are you going to do this? So I'm going to give you 2 real estate prompts that I want you to use. The beauty of AI is its ability to create customization and personalization at scale. So I'm going to give you 2 great prompts to use, but we also have an entire prompt library on stackpoint.com/AI and also on the QR code where you guys can download them, which are much more detailed, and there's many more of them. So please do that. But just like in our analog lives, the quality that you get out of your AI is going to depend on the quality of the questions that you put in. So the mistake that people make is that we've all spent the last 15, 20 years querying Google with very simple search terms, and we've all been trained that way. So many of us are using AI the same way. The right way to do it is to ask the AI, assign it a role, set the flow, provide context, shape the deliverables, attach documents to give it context, and then iterate it together. So let's take a look at these. Your role, this is ChatGPT or whatever your preferred provider is. Your role, you are my strategic thought partner and investment advisor. Help me anticipate what real estate to divest and invest in a future where AI and automation have dramatically reshaped supply, demand, and the competitive field. My role, I am the insert of your company. You're asking for, give me investment and divestment map, key market signals, an executive memo, and guidelines. This is the most important part. And put this on like all of your queries. Ask me one focused question at a time to understand my business model, asset mix, and exposure to labor and technology risks. You may also ask for documents, investor decks, portfolio summaries to improve precision. My suggestion is take a half day, sit down with this prompt and the following prompt, and just go on the ride. See where it takes you. Poke holes. Ask questions. And this is for you to develop an AI vision strategy for your company. Your role. You are my AI operating strategist. Your job is to help me define how to build, buy, and organize around AI so that my firm performs 10% better across key operational metrics: productivity, cost, efficiency, or speed. My role. I am the CEO of X, Y, and Z company, and you give it your web link and it'll scan your website. AI opportunity map. 3 to 5 operational areas where AI can drive measurable impact with rationale and feasibility. Operational vision statement. In less than 400 words, a narrative that connects technology adoption to measurable business improvements. Capability roadmap. Buy versus build strategy with suggested sequencing of pilots, integrations, or hires. Guidelines. Ground my recommendations in business impact, not technology hype, and provide references. Interview me by asking one question at a time until you have enough information. If on your journey you don't find the solutions that you need, I would invite you to reach out to me. I haven't told you guys what I do. I have a venture studio. It's essentially a venture capital firm, but we build our own companies. And the number one way that we source company ideas is from partners like you guys that come to us and say, I wish I had a solution that looked like this. And then we try to build it. We're not consultants. We don't charge for our services. All we want to do is build venture scale companies in the space, and we collaborate directly with folks just like you guys. And same thing, if you come across a founder who's excited about building their next company, those are the types of people that we like to meet. So please reach out. And I will close with the man, the myth, Jensen Huang. AI isn't going to take your job. The people who use AI are going to replace those who don't. So if you haven't started already, let today be the day. Thank you.